as you can tell.
Hello and welcome to our committee members, welcome to our guests, to our March DEI Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee meeting. I will call this meeting to order. Can we take roll, please? Present.
Sabula,
Present.
Lyra, Johnson,
Present.
Hayes,
Present.
Eagle,
Present.
Essie,
Here.
Wenzelberger, Yang, Tischler,
Present.
Benayak,
Present.
Wojciechowski.
Here.
Thank you. We like to start our meetings with the land acknowledgement, and Alex, you'll be reading that for us.
We are gathered here on the lands that were originally home to the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. We honor the Menominee and Ho-Chunk communities and are grateful for their stewardship of the lands and waters. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds as sacred and remember the complex history of settler colonialism on these lands and the effects that persist today. We commit to a restorative and healing relationship of the original inhabitants and our community.
Next, Juliana Benayak will be reading our mission statement for us.
The mission of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is to create a more welcoming, connected, and equitable Oshkosh by consciously including the richness and complexities of marginalized voices in its planning and function.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the February meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All right. Take roll, please.
Lee,
Aye.
Sabula,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Eagle,
Aye.
Essie,
Aye.
Tischler,
Here.
Benayak,
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, next, I'm so excited to have our students, have some students here from Oshkosh North. I was inspired when at one of our school board meetings, a couple of them read their poems, and then also at their Black History Month celebration with their Black Student Union group. I was so impressed that I thought that it would be a great way to honor Women's History Month and to also highlight some of the wonderful talent in our community. So I let them decide which order they'd like to read, but if you can come and introduce yourself, give us your name, and we'd love to hear your poetry. Thank you.
So my name is Harmony. I am the president of BSU, Black Student Union. So, yeah. Same story every time. Being black is not a crime until it is. Until my color, my complexion, and my hair is too intimidating for someone to bear. Until a traffic stop turns into a crime scene and a reason to start planning a funeral. Dante Wright, 20, who was shot after a traffic stop when an officer mistook her taser for a gun. Hands up, don't shoot, but they still do. Stephen Clark, 22, who was shot 20 times because cops thought his phone was a gun. If you stood there and watched, you are a terrible cop. Tyree Nichols, 29, who was beat by police while colleagues watched. Hey ho, all these racist cops have to go. Alton Sterling, 37, who was called slurs after being shot. Each person has a story. This is Black history, and they all were Black excellence. Your lives will not be forgotten, nor the joy you all shared. Every soul that had a passing had a person with whom they were paired. Siblings, parents, relatives, even friends too. Infinity and beyond lay to rest at last. You were so loved in your present and will be forever missed in your past. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I am the Vice President of BSU at North. My poem is called That Black Woman. That black woman. Society does not water the flower that is the black woman, but the black woman is unlike any other flower, for she grows strong without being nurtured. Her roots are deep, her stem is strong, and her petals grow bright. She is the only flower which can grow under any circumstance. She has weathered the storm of the words from her opposers, that black woman, yet she continues to blossom. She is tough like the thorns of a rose, that black woman. Her colors continue to stay bright, even on the cloudy nights, that black woman. Her roots stay grounded even when they are being tugged. She is the flower that stands out from all flowers. She is the flower that everyone doubts when walking by. She is the flower that people think will not stay alive, that black woman.
Hi, my name is Sanai. I'm the social media manager for BSU. I'm going to be reading my poem titled My Name. My name is Sanai, S-A-N-A-I. In Arabic, it means brilliance. In Hebrew, it means intelligent. And in some African cultures, it means work of art. In every other culture, my name is beautiful. In this one, my name is flawed. As I type my name in this doc, it underlines it in ugly shade of red. It's telling me my name is wrong, incorrect. It needs to be fixed. I wonder if it'd be the same if my name was Sarah, or Scarlett, or Sophie. I wonder if it'd be the same if my name was made by people with noses that weren't so wide, and hair that isn't so big, and skin that isn't so dark. I wonder if it'd be the same if my name was owned by the same people who create the websites that are telling me my name is wrong. For now, we'll ignore the red line and listen to those that say my name is brilliant, intelligent, and a work of art.
Hi, my name is Tiara. I am a member of BSU. Where is my, hold on, sorry. Okay, my spoken word is, my poem is called Who Am I? Who am I? A child, a black female child, wanting to live but not afraid to die, wanting to make my ancestors proud. Who am I? Hope and faith, hope to see a better world, fighting for peace and justice. Who am I? Hoping that racism will be a thing of the past, hoping that the world will be better, no more police brutality. Who am I? The new generation that understands why all my brothers and sisters did not have to die. They did not commit any vicious crimes. They were at the wrong place at the wrong time. Who am I? A black girl. Yes, it's true, but don't let the looks fool you. I'm a black girl because I've survived those times. I'm a black girl because I've been told I'm too tough, too rough, and too dark, and to never be enough. To be a color acknowledged at its worst. I am white when it comes to mannerism. I am black when I am a victim of racism. I'm a black girl because I was raised in a society that hates me. They hate my color and my confidence, yet preach diversity. I am a masterpiece of creation and a beautiful reality of my ancestors' imagination. Who am I? Just a black female child, wanting peace and justice. Who am I? A black, strong female child. That's who I really am.
Thank you to all who read your poetry. It's so beautiful.
Thank you, thank you.
Can we give another round of applause to them? So you are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but we understand if you have to go. Again, we so appreciate you being here and showing up and sharing your talents with us. We're so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also
Yes.
inform that we do have openings for students on our committee.
Two of them right here. Yes, of the applicants. Yes.
Right now?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you
don't let them
so
go.
much.
Oh, that's so powerful.
That was amazing.
Yes, thank you for, you invited them. Thank you for inviting them, Angie.
You're welcome. I heard them at a board meeting and thought that would be a wonderful. They spoke during Black History Month, and I thought, as women, they would make a really great impact here as well. And so, they obliged, and I'm glad I did. And I'm hoping that with each month, as we try to celebrate a heritage, or that month, that maybe we can have some kind of art or poetry, some spoken word on for each month. Okay. Do we have any citizen statements or anyone?
No one is registered.
Okay. No one for public comment?
No one is registered.
Okay. All right. Next, we have another guest. We have someone here to spotlight her business, and we're so excited to have her. That's another something that we're trying to include into our meetings, is to have a business spotlight from a business owned by a person of color, or and so welcome, and we're so excited for you to tell us about Fat Mamas.
Thank you for coming, Shaquan. We're very excited to have you.
I hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like to introduce your name and your business?
My name is Shaquan Burks. My business is Fat Mama's Po' Boys and Sandwiches. I had it since September 6, 2022. And it's just a place you can come and feel at home, have some free Kool-Aid. I do like po' boy sandwiches. I do pulled pork brisket. On Sundays, I do soul food barbecue. I even got some menus too. So,
Ooh. Yes.
So,
And of course, we do understand that you recently received a grant from Spectrum called Pay It Forward as well. Do you want to just mention that?
oh yes, that was nice of them. April 1st, I think we got it set. Yeah, April 1st. It's supposed to air. Is it April 1st?
It's airing April 10th.
Oh, April 10th. So I was thankful for that. They working with me with everything, and to try to get me out there. So I like that. So I hope y'all see it. Hope y'all come down there and try some.
For the commercial, and I have some witness testimony that I will be providing, even just this past Sunday. Yes, there's the po' boys and the sandwiches, and then the soul food Sunday. It is absolutely amazing, and every time that my family goes there, we always realize that we should have ordered more because we are like fighting over the last crumbs. My son loves the ribs. They are to die for, and they're tender and they're delicious. And yeah, witness testimony. I have had the sandwiches, I've had the soul food Sunday, and the variety is amazing. So it's an absolute great business, and
Thank you.
You are amazing and just so welcoming. And when she says that it is just laid back, welcoming environment, it is. It's like going to have like a meal at a family member's house or friends, like sitting down and having that meal, and just to have it just be this warm environment. So it is phenomenal. Located on
616
Yep.
Ohio Street, like the
Yes.
corner of 7th and Ohio.
Yes, so please frequent that business, support local, and it's just amazing.
And I think it's the only place you can get oink fries.
Yes.
Oh.
That was something I made up, so.
Can you tell us more about that?
I believe there is a picture of the oink fries up on the screen right now.
Well, it's just some fries covered in pork, green onions, jalapeno peppers, barbecue sauce, and nacho cheese. So a lot of people come and get it though, but I made it up. But a lot of people come and get it. I didn't even think me making that up. A lot of people want that. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to add up that first, welcome back to town. Yeah, Fat Mama's, this is not the first time she's done this business down here. She was here some years back, and then that time I think the business was on Main Street, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
We used to love going there and enjoy the food. And I can tell you, when you left town, we were so sad.
So was I.
Yeah, so we're happy to get you back into town and hope you stay this time forever.
Until I move.
But Sunday there was fried okra, and which I can't get around here. So I was like, yes, load it up with some fried okra because it reminds me of my grandmother.
I try to have something different on Sundays. Like 1 minute it'll be like a baked beans or collard greens, okra. So different stuff, but always cornbread.
Always cornbread with my daughter.
Always
eats
wants the
all the
cornbread.
pieces of cornbread. We all know that that's all hers. We don't get to have any. Already spoken for. But yes, it's delicious.
But I
Absolutely
didn't bring a lot, but here goes some right here. Just a few it'll be enough. So
Yeah, we will definitely pass those around.
delicious. And there's delivery options as well.
DoorDash,
Yep.
East Street, Menufy, myself. I'll do
It's
it too.
amazing. So you can follow
Are you,
on Facebook as well.
Are you open every day? Or,
No,
no.
I need time.
Oh, no, I was just
I
curious.
tried to do it. I'm closed Mondays and Tuesdays.
Mondays and
I tried to be open every day, but
Yeah.
whew.
Are you also, do you do catering outside for
Yeah, I
events?
got two wedding caterers, wedding caterings already. One in July and one in May. So that'll help me get my little portfolio together for the catering, so I can let people know, But it's got to be barbecue though, like pulled pork, brisket, stuff like that. I'm good with that. Ribs,
Barbecue chicken.
like a soul, like catering,
Yes, exactly.
Like
And
they'll
then-
want something totally different. I'm like, no, you should get this. You should get that. You should get this.
And then you're catering for the real Oshkosh dinner in April. Are you catering for that? Yes.
Yes, April.
He surprised
April
me. I didn't
15th.
even know nothing about it. I didn't know nothing about it. So I just went to that meeting we had. So I said, let me go to this little Juneteenth meeting, see what it's about or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was talking about his organization. So then when he said, and we gonna have Fat Mama Cater, I'm like, oh, okay. But when I seen the paper with my name on it, I said, huh? He was serious. I didn't even know. So I was like, okay, yeah.
It's great. Have a community just like surround you and a gigantic hug is always amazing.
And I take care of you. So come in, I'm gonna take care of you.
And the servings are,
Could you tell us just in a couple, just really briefly, what how you became a business owner?
I just wanted to do it. I said I didn't want to work for nobody no more. Like I don't know. When I was ever since I was a kid, I always said I'm not retiring working for nobody. That's just what I always thought. And I love cooking, and it got me out the streets. To be honest. So I love it. My mom got 8 girls, and I was the only one that used to watch her cook. So she was sick one day because she never missed a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We ate. So one day we didn't eat. We ate. She just told us. Let me change it. We ate. No, she told us to make some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So I'm like, this not her. This ain't what we used to. So she was sick. So I went in there and cut up some potatoes. And I remember she put in some grease, some onions. And I served it to her. The potatoes wasn't all the way done, but
but we ate
but
it.
yeah, she was surprised, and ever since then I just cooked. From that was like 10 years old, so I love it. I can cooking is my hobby. Whatever I cook, I'll make something out of it. Anything.
Thing, especially for us, like it is. It's like our
It's like you can just put something together. Like I'll be in the refrigerator, like I got some leftover this, that. Okay, I'm gonna do something with this. So
That's where everybody sat down
and it'd be good.
Yes.
It'd be
Growing
good,
up,
so.
my grandmother, I grew up in the projects, and my grandmother would always make enough because she didn't know who would come by or who would need a meal.
Everybody ate at my mama's
Seriously,
house.
that's what it was.
The
It's like-
neighborhood, everybody came and got a plate.
Yep.
So I'm like, you better start charging.
My grandmother would make you take a plate home.
Yes,
Because she
yep.
always made enough because she never knew who would stop by or who would need food. So
I
it's
love
embedded.
cooking. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get another, even though I'm kind of moving too fast, but I want to, my next thing is maybe in like a year or two, I want to get like a soul food place, like Fat Mama's Chicken and Fish and Barbecue. Just catfish.
Fish. Can I ask a question about your customer base? Because I'm just curious. Do you find a diverse mix of people coming in to try things for the first time.
Yeah.
So I'm biased. I don't
Yes.
even know if I can ask this, but like chitlins.
Well, that's what I want to get the soul food place for, because when I first had a business here, I did that. I did stuff like neck bones. I did neck bones, pig feet. I did like oxtails and stuff like that. And when I was at the the university, Oshkosh College, they used to have this. I don't know if they still got it, but back in the days, they had this Black History every month. Oh, no, every year. And people had different kind of foods, so I used to go and do the chitlins. I did the chitlins, the neck bones, the pig feet. I did the greens, the cornbread. I don't know if they still do it or not, but I did
Dr.
that.
Simpson would be able to, Alfonso Simpson would be able to tell you.
Okay.
At Oshkosh, I was just curious. Like when I first moved here, my Thanksgiving in Detroit is not Oshkosh Thanksgiving.
Right.
So everything that I would be looking for, I want to eat, everybody would be
Yes.
like, "What's that? What's
Yes.
that?" So I was just curious if you were
they-
introducing
yeah,
the community
Yeah,
to
they used to
things.
do that. They used to be like, "What are collard greens or what is neck bones?" So I let them taste it. And
Yeah.
next minute they were like, "I want that to go." You know.
Okay. I was just
want
curious.
that. So yeah, I just like to introduce it. Or like when people come in, they be like, "What is this?" I let people taste stuff anyway. Like if they're in their waiting, I'll bring out something and be like, "Taste this." Like some people don't know about corned beef. Like I ain't talking about the corned beef hash or I'm talking about the for real corned beef. So and they be like, "What is it?" So I let them try it. So thank you.
Anyone have any other questions for Shaikwan?
Just add a little bit of comment here for Anne and others who would want to know more about Fat Mamas. If one of you listen to podcasts, you should tune into the Kosh, where she gave a full detailed story of herself and business. Listen to the Kosh, and you get to learn more about Fat Mamas and what she's about.
I like to cook.
Throw down. What do you like to do? Throw down.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
taking the
you.
time to come here tonight. We really do appreciate it. And it worked out well because they're closed on Mondays.
Yeah. I would have been like trying to rush and get here smelling like food. Because I did that when I came into the Juneteenth thing. I'm like, okay, let me close for a second. And I'm in there sitting around. I'm like, do I smell like food? I was like, I smell food. I'm like, dang, I smell like all this food. Yeah, but thank you so much. And I hope I see y'all. And I'll take care of y'all when y'all come in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next, this has been a night of a lot of guests. So next we have Heidi Keating from the Winnebago County Health Department. She's going to be speaking a little bit about the community health assessment that the county is currently undergoing and give us a little bit of information about that. And then she'll open it up for questions and discussion. So welcome, Heidi.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm hungry.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
what a great presentation so far. I mean, the students were really fantastic, and I'm no poet, so I'm going to take things down a notch. Sorry about that. As Angie said, I work at the Winnebago County Health Department. I'm a public health planner, so I work on various plans, internal to our health department, also external, like for the community. That would be the community health assessment, and then there's also a community health improvement plan that follows. So I was just going to go over kind of what is a community health assessment, just to share that information with you. It represents our county, information and data from our county. So we'll just go through this. And before I get into the actual assessment, just some definitions about health in general, and then public health. You all know about public health from the pandemic. We were in the spotlight. But a lot of people don't really know what public health is. It's kind of complex. It's not a really easy definition always. So in general, health from the World Health Organization is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmary. So just in general, like when we talk about health. And so when we talk about public health, it's what we do together as a society to ensure the conditions in which everyone can be healthy. So again, it's not super clear really what that means. So there's an analogy that I like to use to describe public health. So, just to keep in mind, it's what we do together as a society to ensure the conditions in which everyone can be healthy. So imagine, if you will, a frog living in a pond, nice, peaceful pond, right? And a frog gets sick. So what would you do? Well, you would go to the vet. You'd take the frog to see a doctor, right, or a veterinarian. The veterinarian is going to diagnose what's wrong with the frog and treat the frog and send the frog on his way. And so then the frog returns home, right? And so you think about, what does home look like? Or what does your environment look like? What are the conditions that the frog needs to be healthy? So the picture on the right, there's one in the center, like, okay, frog's on a lily pad, everything's copacetic, everything's great. The one on the right, you got a little frog family, they look like they're doing pretty good. What if the frog went to the picture on the left, right? What is, and this is, kind of a bit on the nose, right? It's like in your face, okay, obviously pollution, right? But these are the conditions in which we as a society live. And so it's not just environmental pollutants and that kind of thing. There's conditions in the home. There's things seen and unseen that we live in. And so this is what public health does, is focusing on the conditions in which everyone can be healthy. So it's important, too, to understand the difference between public health and healthcare, because health is right in the title of what we do. But if you go to the health department, which is on Otter Avenue, it's, we do have, one or two small clinic rooms, that kind of thing. We have a lab, but it doesn't look like a doctor's office. And I'm sure everybody here has been to the doctor's office, and when you think of health, and, I think a lot of people just think about going to the doctor. And healthcare, it is focused on the individual. The emphasis is on disease diagnosis and treatment and care. And it's medical care. You're given, a procedure, you are given medication, you have an illness or some kind of condition that is being treated. Whereas public health, we focus on a population. We're not treating individuals. Our emphasis is on disease prevention, health promotion for a community. And the interventions are aimed at the environment. We look at trying to change the environment, human behavior, lifestyle, and access to medical care. So if, insurance what are the barriers to care? There could be cultural barriers, there could be insurance barriers, transportation barriers. But we look at the population versus individual. So kind of back to, our community conditions. What are the community conditions? And so, we think of the frog going in the pond, right? Well, what are our community conditions? And it's a little hard to read from back here, but there's, there's education, there's employment, income opportunities, wealth, community safety, transportation, your neighborhood, the physical environment, the air and water quality, parks. What is it like? Do you have, can you walk to a grocery store? Do you have access to fresh fruits and vegetables? That kind of thing. And so really, the people that live in the community are the experts of their community. and they also know what the community conditions are like, what's available, what isn't.
Yeah, Heidi, can we pause for a moment? So when I look at this chart, it reminds me that, when we, our committee has been tasked with the areas of health, housing, and economic mobility. But when I look at that, health encompasses so much more than maybe what we often think of. People don't associate parks and recreation as part of, a healthy environment or a healthy community. And this is just a good reminder that our scope is so much larger than I think what often we're larger than what we're often minimize it to.
Yeah, and when you think of elements that aren't in place for everybody and how that impacts health, it's, there's a lot of data that backs it up, and it's really important to listen to the people of the community and what they're experiencing. So, when you think about then what impacts health, and there's a lot of data around this, a lot of data. So the socio and economic factors, 40% impacts your health. Physical environment, 10%. Health behaviors, that's like, tobacco use, physical activity, alcohol use, that kind of thing. And 30% health care, access to care and quality of care. 20%, and I think it's hard to imagine that 20% of what impacts your health is actually going to the doctor. And 50% is socioeconomic factors in your physical environment. So like where you live. Your zip code is more important than pretty much anything else, because your zip code is, where you go to school, most likely. Where you work, the opportunities that you have, your access to grocery stores, your access to parks, recreation, green space, the quality of the air quality, water quality, that kind of thing. And those are the factors and the conditions that really impact our health.
Quick question. So when communities like Milwaukee and others declare like violence as a public health crisis, where is that? Like, where do you put that?
Safety. The last top one is
I by default want to say that until I think like environment.
Mm-hmm.
And since I'm not the expert, like where do you put violence?
That's a really good question. And, it probably could fit in physical environment, community safety. Also, these are what's called social determinants. And then, oops, I'm going on the wrong. This is the bigger, there's not a set number of, right? And then the structural determinants are the policies that influence the social determinants. So, the people that we elect to office have a lot of influence on our health and well-being. It's as much a structural determinant potentially with, what, our access to, I guess like violence, somewhat, our laws could be better, right, to protect people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's, the next level up, going to those structural determinants. But recently read, the CEOs and our elected officials have more to do with our health than maybe we realize.
Mm-hmm.
So now the community health assessment, right? So the 10 essential services, the 10 essential public health services. So I just made a copy. I know that's really hard to read. Even this is hard to read. It's printed very small. But the community health assessment, it's a requirement for public health departments, so that's just, it's in our state statute. The 10 essential services, this is a national framework, basically, of what public health does. So it's just a kind of a reference of like when, like, what is public health? What are we responsible for? What do we do? These
People behind you.
kind of lay out what public health departments do. So it's also in our state statute to do a community health assessment and a community health improvement plan. And for public health, it's 5 years. Every 5 years, you're supposed to do another assessment and then improvement plan. So I have abbreviated there CHA, that's what we call the Community Health Assessment, CHA, and then there's the CHIP, which is a Community Health Improvement Plan. But these first 5, you know, kind of like number 1, assess and monitor population health status, factors that influence health, and community needs and assets. So right there is like really the definition of a community health assessment. You know, more specifically, like we have people in our health department that do investigate diseases and outbreaks and that kind of thing. But even that number 2 of looking at address health problems and hazards affecting the population, that's part of the assessment. What's out there, you know, that we need to know about and talk about. And then like the 4 and 5 is strengthen, support, mobilize communities and partnerships to improve health. There's 45 people that work at the Winnebago County Health Department, so we rely on our partners, you know, to work and work to be part of coalitions and that kind of thing to help push forward, you know, things that are important to the coalition, to the community. Create, champion, and implement policies, plans, and laws that impact health. We wish, you know, that's the long game, you know, to do work in policies, to systems level work, have policies that, you know, health in all policies, that kind of idea. It takes, you know, a long time sometimes to get things passed. Sometimes things happen quickly. Other times things seem to really drag on. But it's something that it is a part of public health that's really important.
Heidi, I'm a little remiss in interrupting, and I do apologize, but I'm curious, because I was honestly hoping to have more of a conversation at some point.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much time we have allotted, and I don't really want to like
Yes.
put into your time and what you're doing here, because it is important, but,
So,
and that's okay, I just,
no, just tell me I didn't check my timeline.
and that's okay, I don't know what more you feel that is essential for us to know in this, so
Okay.
I'll listen, but.
Are you under a time constraint at
No.
all? No, okay.
Okay. I just have a few more slides. So, and did you want to have a discussion
We
among
can wait, this is
yourselves, or-
important. No, I had some questions. I was pressing to have you here.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
It's
I've
just
been-
trying to like, you know.
No, this is
give the-
important.
it's-
I'm not, I don't mean to not go
No,
through
it's
it.
okay.
I'm just
I
chomping
just
at
want to
the
make
bit.
sure that I'm meeting the expectations.
Yeah, you are,
I
you
think
are.
you are.
You are.
Yes, you are.
This is helpful.
Yes, it's very good.
I think you were just wanted to make sure we still had an opportunity. while we
Yes,
discussed
yes.
this,
I don't know like
not
what
to
your
rush you along.
timeline is, and so
I-
sometimes people have to leave right
I don't
away.
know.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
I mean, Fat Mom is not open, so.
That's right.
So, you know, every 5 years is a pretty long time, right, to do a community health assessment. And I think every time we do it, we get, it's different. We learn, you know, we grow, we do things differently. This is from the Public Health Accreditation Board, so it's kind of like best practices, right? So it's not a statistical report. One is that we have to develop a community health assessment collaboratively with community partners. And the purpose is to draw conclusions about health status, challenges, and assets, community assets, because what we do with this information, we use the information to identify priorities, strategies and interventions to improve the health of the population. So, and then we want to make this report that we put together that is easily understood by its target audience. The reason, I mean, I've used this slide before, but we haven't always made it easily understandable to community members, to stakeholders. Sometimes there's just a lot of data and numbers, and what does this mean? And so it's not meant to be a statistical report. It's meant to be something to help inform decision making. And so help us to decide what are the community priorities. The past community health priorities, and this is generally for this region, has been around mental health, around substance use and misuse. And then, we're working more upstream, so housing has been a priority. Before that, there's a lot of focus on physical activity and nutrition, and more access to fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing. But we're trying to move more upstream and work on more of those social determinants. And so the last few years, there's been work with community partners around housing, affordable housing, housing on, different types of housing, the transitional housing, that kind of thing, and social connectedness and that kind of thing. There are some requirements. Again, this is from the accreditation board, so it's just kind of a FYI that, that we do want to include our population, our demographics. We do primary and secondary data. Secondary data is like when we go to the census and gather data. Primary data is data that we would collect ourselves, like doing a survey. And then, really talking about the disparities between the subpopulations and geographies, so health status and health behaviors. And so it's really important, and we haven't always been good at this. One is that we have better data now, but anyway, so I'll just say, we are getting better at it, and it's just really, important. And then to talk about the inequities and the factors that contribute to health challenges. And so this is really guidance. We are currently not accredited. It's voluntary accreditation, but it's best practice. And so it's certainly our guide. And I would say that public health, there's been, probably within the last 10 years to focus more on equity and more on social determinants. Probably depending on where you live, if you've been working on it longer. It's just, it takes time. It takes time to shift. But that's what our advisory team has been working on, is, looking at the data, trying to understand the health inequities and how we're going to share that with the community. And so, those are just some examples about, affordable housing, culturally and linguistically appropriate services, if we have that available for people in our community. The built environment, what that means is the physical environment, as well as the air and water quality, also sidewalks and roadways and that kind of thing. And, our vulnerability to climate change, flooding, we've all seen on the news big storms and the impact in different communities, as well as things like grocery stores that I've mentioned, sidewalks, transportation. And then community assets, and we don't want to be focused on all the problems, because we're the people that are going to improve the health. And so we have a lot of strength and assets here, and so we want to make sure that we have a strength and asset-based lens on the work that we do, and working to bring people together, listening to one another. So that's also part of the community health assessment. As far as this is just kind of like a visual of a model that we use. This is developed by the Population Health Institute out of UW-Madison. Great resource, the county health rankings, and this is their take action cycle. And so the assess needs and resources, so assess, that's the assessment. And this list of steps involved, and the part that's circled there is really what we're working on now. So we've been working with an advisory team about looking at our data and our community and having questions, getting to understand what it's like here, what are the things that, what are our assets, what are things that are our data that's, what does our data say? What does the most current data say? What's the impact of COVID, that kind of thing. And then we still have to do some primary data collection, share the results with the community. We're working on the report, that kind of thing. So this is just, the other thing that we're trying to do, and is, when we look at, so there's an example of income, and when you look at income levels by race and ethnicity, and looking at, making sure that we're looking at things from a systemic level, and then also being able to call that out. And while people have been going through inflation and that kind of thing, and depending on who you talk to or who's putting the report out, some things could seem like everything's going great, and then other people could say no, it's really not good. We're really struggling. Can't afford to put gas in the car. So whoever kind of holds that narrative. So we're trying to challenge that and look at, when we identify some of those issues, what's happening at the systemic level, not blaming students, not blaming individuals for. There's been a shift, say for example in public health, tobacco use, that let's look at the corporate practices of tobacco companies and talk about holding them accountable rather than say, you should just make good choices. And when we don't look at the environment of where, who's been targeted, who's been marketed to, what are the communities that have been putting, cheap, accessible tobacco products in the hands of kids, basically. So that's, really a huge goal of what we're trying to do. So some of the challenges, and this is my last slide, is to shift the narrative around to, talk about the social determinants, talk about housing, transportation. I mean, if you don't have a car, it's hard to get around in this area, the Fox Valley area. The public transportation system is limited, right? That access to care, education, social and community context. Economic stability is huge. Looking at some of the reports, Advocap has a report out, and it's probably one of the most recent with data. And they included the living wage calculator, and for this area, for Winnebago County, if you have 2 adults working and 2 kids, it's like $100,000 a year if you didn't have any other kind of help, to pay for daycare, if you have children in daycare, to pay for, then kids are expensive, right? And so you need 2 cars, you need a house, you need, and it's pretty jaw-dropping to you just don't think it costs that much to live here, right? But if you didn't have any help from, to cover all your expenses, right?
Yeah.
So, so we're, trying to call that out. It's been a while. We were supposed to have a CHA and a CHIP, basically 2020, so we're behind because of the pandemic. But we're currently working on it and should have a draft of the assessment out this summer. And then from the assessment, we determine our priorities and bring more partners together to work on those together. So what kind of questions do you have?
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah. Ashley, did you want to start with some
Well,
questions?
I'll
Yeah.
dominate this if I had the chance, so, but I won't. So, and maybe we can discuss things offline.
Yeah.
I'd really love to have more of a
Oh, okay,
conversation.
great.
Sure. But, like, I'm gonna start with the one that really jumped out at me is not being an accredited, public health department. I wonder if that's resource driven, number one. Because I'm quite familiar, with FAB and some of the
Oh, okay.
processes in this. But, so I ask, is it resource driven and is that financial or human capital or both? And two, I'm wondering, given as you're going through this process and you're looking at your community assets and partners, and this, I'll just be quite frank, I'm quite puzzled the fact that, city and some others, we're working at a county level for public health. And I get that. But, I just wonder, were there missed resources, missed opportunities, had you had city partnerships that were in some other structure, or other partnerships? Like, where do we need to strengthen this as far as a county supporting lots of different little municipalities, larger, smaller? So to me, in my mind, everybody has something to contribute. We're all gonna be limited, which makes sense. You have a county system. But at the same time, I just wonder if there were not opportunities, and how do you assess that?
We definitely need to talk more. So, those are all really great questions. As far as FAB, yes to both. Public health is underfunded. We were talking to somebody from county in California, Northern California, I'm just spacing on the name, and they have like a population of 130,000 people or something like that, and they have 170 employees. That's what I did.
We have 45.
Yes, yeah.
What is FAB?
FAB is
Public
Public Health Accreditation Board, so it's PH, FAB.
PH.
Trying to figure out what the F
PHF,
was.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing is there could be some resourcing challenges to get through the accreditation process, to staff it appropriately to meet the needs, and that kind of what I'm,
That's
Perhaps.
part of it, but there's other health departments in Wisconsin that have gone,
and gotten the accreditation,
yes,
yeah.
and gone through accreditation, so it is a commitment. And yes to the community health assessment and community health improvement plan has like all this potential, right? And so part of it is making sure that you have the right people and that you're well connected, and so it's like I've researched other communities, and they put more resources into it, and it doesn't have to be led by the health department. Sometimes the United Way will lead it, sometimes a healthcare system will lead it, sometimes another organization. And it just, it's like it has this great potential. And so it's really like working with the right people to say like, hey, let's do this, and we're all like committed to working on it. And because the more resources, the more people you bring to the table, right? Like then you have more resources, you get alignment. You don't want to duplicate what other organizations are doing. We have the OFR, the opioid fatality review,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of times substance use is a community priority, but we wouldn't want to duplicate anything that we already have going on. So that's an asset, right? They've been working together for a while. So where's the gap? Where's the gap? And that's what this, and the more people that have input into this process, the better we are.
And this is really, the last thing I want to bring up, this is why I'm glad you're here. So number one, thank you. It kind of blows my mind that the city is not as involved as we could be, in my opinion, in supporting rollout of education, amplifying messages. I totally understand duplication where there's scarcity of resources, nobody wants to be perceived, and you have to kind of have that. I get that. But at the same time, I'm quite passionate about our current opioid epidemic. I'm dismayed at the lack of, not like say public health, but messaging around the risks of fentanyl. It just blows my mind continuously for years now. You know, I just wonder what more can we do, and I really want us to think about this as an advisory body, given what we're learning, clearly just defined in our charge to look at these key areas. How can we really look at this, and what more questions do we have? Because I think we should just continue this dialogue here for the betterment of our communities as a whole. And I think there's opportunities that we could really leverage, given what I think we're learning and what we're seeing as our charge. That's all. I'll stop there. But
Well, I
really appreciate the
yeah,
time.
no, I likewise, and I feel like I probably should have been months ago. So
Oh, no, it's
but
yeah,
there's
there.
yeah, there's a lot we can do together, and more than happy to, you know, try to think about that. And I just have a funny, you know, it's like I was at Winnebago Health Department, and then I went to Outagamie Health Department and came back to Winnebago. So, you know, and we kind of had to regroup after the pandemic. We were all, you know, nose to the grindstone kind of thing, and just so building out the the relationships and the partnerships, and so we want to, you know, work together, you know, for in any way possible, really, because that's where the strength of the community is. And I think we need, you know, we can continue to do better. I know that, yeah, I think we want to have a more diverse group of people, hearing from a more diverse group of people. And sometimes when we've done surveys in the past and you look at who fills them out, you know, it's not representative of the community.
That was another reason we brought Heidi here, was so that we could, you know, kind of plug her into our different networks to get some of those community stories. I know Mouche and I are serving on the advisory committee right now, but they're trying to expand who's represented in that group. And so please reach out to Heidi, and we'll share your email if that's okay. And if you feel that you have access to a group that, you know, needs to contribute to this community story, I think it's important that we get in touch with her.
Yeah, so we had a grant, and then the county board didn't accept the grant. I don't know if you all heard that story. Anyway.
Oh, but maybe we don't have time.
Then we won't go into that. So we, there is some funding available, and we're, so Esther, if you're familiar with Esther, that organization has, we were able to pass on our grant to them, and so they have some funding. So to do a focus group or that kind of thing, we're just really getting started with the focus groups, finalizing the questions, thinking like 6 to 12 people kind of thing. It's the questions are pretty open-ended, just to hear from community, and about their, you know, like what it's like to live here, how it's been during the pandemic, you know, what you see as areas to move forward, and experiences with the different systems and opportunities, resources, that kind of thing. So, yeah, we're trying to do it different this go around.
Any other questions for Heidi?
I hope you come back when you have some numbers to show us too.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've had conversation. You're going to work with our organization later this year. Yeah.
I am.
Yes. It's nice to see you. It's like I saw the people in this group, and it's just a great group of people. Like some of the names I recognize, and I think some folks were did the presentation for the county diversity group. Did you do that?
I did.
No.
Yeah. Yes,
No,
I
was
did.
on the Zoom. listening in.
Yeah, that's not a program that will be happening either.
No, they
Yeah.
dismantled that.
Yes, they no longer have a
Yeah,
diversity
group.
either.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
probably the best thing for what happened.
Yeah, and hopefully, yeah, maybe
Okay.
maybe there's a lot that could happen in the future.
The county?
Yes, the future of the county, and, you know, it could come back stronger and more concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
We can also talk later.
Yeah.
We can talk offline as well.
All right.
As a fellow staff member, it's an awkward position to put Heidi in to talk about those things.
Right.
As a community group, you can free to speak, but I appreciate
Yeah.
No,
Heidi's position.
No, I think I brought it up, so,
Yeah.
but I heard you speak during that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I thought it was a great way to learn more about community members and.
Yeah, I did too.
Even if they're Zoom, I think a lot of people actually tuned in to that.
There
and
was
so-
like 70 people, sometimes 100 people that would,
Yeah.
that would Zoom in, and it was, the turnout was
Yes.
impressive, I thought.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of people that are very dismayed by the fact that it is no longer, and the reasons that it is no longer. But I think there's going to be some action and some ideas to get it back up and running, but
Okay.
maybe be a standalone, and there's ways.
Yes.
There's a lot of community members that are wanting to be more involved and aren't going to let others decide for them. So
Excellent.
it's good. It's good.
So, yeah, let me just ask you, like, what would be the best way to, do you want to get in touch with me, or do you want me to reach out to you to have some input into the assessment process? And because I just want to, since I'm here,
Well,
and
there are two things that come to my mind, quite honestly, is if we could just continue to have, we meet monthly unless something goes wrong. But somehow we try to connect. If you could be a standing kind of, I don't know if it fits your schedule, but if there's a way to just kind of continue to report out
Yeah.
what's happening, what might be some trends you're realizing. You'll obviously get other areas you might need some support. If I hear there's a story collection process going on, well, what is that, you know? And you know, yeah, that would be my thought, like, just at the very least come back for the next couple of months, or communicate with our chairpersons, or
If there's something you'd
HR,
like
yeah.
to, definitely come to one of our next meetings. Definitely feel free to reach out to me, as
Okay.
well as our chair, Angie. You know, because Angie and I discussed the upcoming meetings a couple weeks before the meeting. So if there's something that you would like to share, definitely give us a call.
Okay. For the collection piece of the focus groups, we don't have it like the process completely like nailed down yet. So it's hard to say, you know, like this is what it's going to be when we don't have this is what it's going to be yet. So, you know, sometimes it just takes a little longer than you want it to. So we're getting close to having that process figured out, and then, you know, I can definitely reach out to we've been working with Mouche and Angie on, here's a clear, this is how we're going to do it. Here's the clear process. Here's how, you know, how the funding piece can work, or some incentive gift cards kind of thing. So
Yes.
I don't want to be vague, but I also don't have a very clear process to share yet. But I will when it's, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that they're really trying to implement a way to compensate people to come into this focus groups, knowing that that information is incredibly valuable and their time is valuable. So thank you for kind of weaving that into your process.
And we wanted also to prioritize different populations, people whose voices aren't always heard. So we're gonna, so that's just part of kind of the goal of having those focus groups.
So does it like make sense to have kind of like the standing agenda item to have an update, and if there's, I don't know if you want to commit to coming every single meeting, but if there's information to pass along, at least we know that Angie and Moshe would have information since they have contact with you, and if there's more of a presentation and a Q&A that we can invite you, or if you can always come, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Okay. That
If that
sounds-
makes a little
Yeah.
more sense, because it's hard to say when the process will be clear and printed. And so if there's updates, we can get those updates from
Mhm.
committee members.
That sounds.
That makes sense to me. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being here with us, for sharing the information.
Thank you.
Yes,
Very
yep.
informative, I appreciate it.
Okay. Next on the agenda is to discuss and vote on the city sponsorship of the Dragon Boat event. So at our last meeting, I was able to share with those who were at the meeting just kind of where the festival planning is going. And I talked about this new partnership with the Northeast Wisconsin Chinese Association and Colorbold Business Association, or Colorbold Association. And it was recommended that this come up again during our meeting for a formal vote. And so we wanted to add this and give the opportunity to discuss and ask any questions before it goes to vote.
Yeah, so what is the Dragon Boat event?
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of context, maybe a year ago, in our ordinance, we've been tasked with putting on cultural events on behalf of the DEI committee. And so for about a year, we've been talking about what this festival might look like. Saida, before she was a member, came as a community member and kind of sparked some ideas for us. And we've been kind of playing with a couple different ideas and themes, but we knew that we wanted certain elements of it, like we wanted there to be an educational component to it, as that's part of our task as well. And when we think about some of the other tasks within our committee, such as facilitating input, we thought this would be a great opportunity also to facilitate input from our community, as well as target some of those DEI metrics that the city has come up with. So what it's pivoted to is a Dragon Boat Festival, and this made sense because Oshkosh has had a history of Dragon Boat races that was put on by the university and the YMCA, I believe, for about 10 years. They were really popular events, but they were just focused on races. So what we're hoping to do is then expand it into a full day festival of cultural programming, food, like a global marketplace, an affinity fair, and really make it into a full day program. And so I'm happy to send you the pitch, the slides for that, and talk about that more in detail if you'd like. So now it's coming up for a vote to have the city officially sponsor it. So what that means is what was left from the Unity and Community budget, and that was an event that took place for about 2-3 years. A group of volunteers came together and kind of put together like a cultural event. And there was a little bit of funding left from that event. And so what we're voting on is if the city were to officially sponsor it, then those funds, about $5,000, I understand, would be transferred into this festival, as well as having official city sponsorship would ensure that we have, their support with like security and insurance and, some of those other city services.
Would the city give us those?
Well, I can give a little background. When Saida made her presentation sounded very similar to what Unity and Community had been before. So I knew it was pretty popular. So that's something, and I think that was purposely written into the committee's structure for that very reason. It's too bad Mi Yang isn't here because Mi was super involved in the Unity and Community event, and she, she put a lot of time and effort into it. And I'm sure she's got a lot of other things going on these days, but the committee, that $5,000 was really a surplus that they achieved from doing the event, and that we were the fiscal agent for the group, so that the bills came in and out from that structure. So that was okay. They typically put together a budget and said, we expect to spend this much money and collect this much money. And for the few years, after 3 years, they had shown I don't want to say a profit, but they'd done well. It was very successful. Held over at the Leach Amphitheater. Different ethnic groups got together and pretty much had a table and a lot of sharing of food and stuff like that. Although you talk about the health department was there to make sure it was all done appropriately and correctly and everything. But it was a lot of fun. And I think it helped to raise a cultural awareness. I think a lot of people don't appreciate the diverse community we have, and it gives them an opportunity to get exposed to some of those things. We had music, different local groups. I wouldn't say they didn't volunteer. I think there was enough money raised that you could pay off a few things here and there, little expenses for a band or something like that. So that was kind of it. So yeah, but the one thing that's different here, and this is how the committee wants to do it, is in this committee, it says right in your charter, actively plan, sponsor, and participate in events. Clearly, 100% in your wheelhouse. That's not an issue. It's really more about how do you want to organize it, and that was a discussion that I had with Angie, and why I'm here tonight to
Thank you.
kind of help, walk you along in terms of expectations. The two major advantages you have by having it sponsored by the city is the event then is rental for the leach or a shelter or anything like that is free. So that makes it. And insurance, God forbid anything happen, but to the degree something happens, it's covered by city insurance. So it takes your risk down a whole bunch, which are two really good things. But there's still legwork that has to get done. If the committee wants to sponsor it, who's going to be the steering committee? Who's going to make the decisions? Will that be this committee? Will it be a subset of this committee? Or will you delegate that to a group such as the groups that Angie was talking about? That's really up to you guys. Eventually, this would go to council for them to consider. They may have some questions and stuff like that. But I think Angie wants to get this off the ground. She had in there and vote. So I think she wants to pursue it. But council may ask questions and you may have questions. So that's entirely okay.
One of mine, or some of mine, is what sponsorship was going to entail and what it really looked like. So with that in mind, I'm just wondering, to the point that it was formerly the fiscal intermediary, kind of making sure things were taken care of, it sort of maintained its exclusivity to the city and to this area. What I'm hearing here, though, is no exclusivity necessarily. We heard earlier that it could rotate to other communities, and I don't really know how that would be something that is sustainable, number one, if that is the direction. And also then to this point, it's very generous to the city. We do need an event and it's there, but it seems to me that I would hope that we could establish something that was really more exclusive to Oshkosh. And seeing as how this is a Chinese American association out of the other northern part of the Fox Valley or, Appleton region, I understand primarily. That's where I'm stuck. I love the idea. I love Dragon Boat racing. Have a team. It was a lot of fun. I would love to have a big event, but that's where I'm stuck on. Is this going to be a one-off, Are we gonna get a 5-year exclusivity? Are we gonna get 10 years? Is this a, you know, how is that going to work? And that would sort of dictate to me the structure of this, who's gonna be put in charge of what. And I can't imagine others on council wouldn't be thinking like that. So it's kind of where I think we need to at least dig into it a little bit.
Yeah. So the intention is to make it exclusive to Oshkosh. We called it the Northeast Wisconsin Dragon Boat Festival to maybe expand to other cities in this region. But as far as, as far as this festival, it will be exclusive to the Leech, to the, our river, or this area. And that's, and we want it to be an annual event, an annual destination event. So, it was initially called Oshkosh Dragon Boat Festival, but we just changed the name a little bit to, in hopes that maybe there will be one in Appleton and in Oshkosh, in coming years. So it's, the first year it will be held in Oshkosh, and the intention is to have one annually in Oshkosh.
So I get, and that's good to hear in some ways, but seeing as where this money was coming from, if it was generated and it was holdover and sort of, created and incubated by local functions, are we then to, as a committee moving forward, expect that we're gonna use a similar amount of money out of our sort of the budget, which we're gonna talk about, at some point here, like, what are we gonna do to ensure that we're gonna be able to sponsor this again? Or is it strictly gonna be just in-kind contribution as a city sponsorship versus also some cash to be used in some fashion or another? And that's kind of where I'm wondering, like, what are we gonna use the money for? We had talked about a number of ideas.
Yeah. So right now, what we've budgeted is the event is going to cost about $100,000, and so it would, we could designate what we want it to go to, whether it's like the global market or to the food fair, or we could designate that, or we could just put it into the general budget, into all the different, like, just renting the boats will cost $30,000 or $40,000, and so we could designate that, or we could just put it into the general fund.
It sounds like we have a lot of potential discussion to have or decisions to be made. Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm making it too complicated, but this is stuff that goes into my mind. And if we move this out and it goes to council, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit, maybe a little bit confused here. Is this gonna be like a one-time deal by the city?
As far as sponsorship.
Yeah, sponsorship for this year. And what happens next year? Are we gonna have our own money to do everything?
Well,
Like the insurance and all other things?
well, the insurance is an in-kind type of thing, so it's just built in. There's no extra. The city doesn't incur extra charges because you have the event. Any department, the Parks Department has an event, it's covered under our basic insurance.
Okay.
This would be covered under our basic insurance.
Even next year and the other year?
Oh,
we
yeah,
do it? Okay.
as long as it's city-sponsored, by definition, it's covered with insurance, and rental of city facilities is free. That's a given. Anything Parks does, when they have an event, they sponsor it, it's automatically covered. Senior Center, think of all those things. It'd be the same thing. In terms of the funds, though, that's where I think it might be appropriate to have a budget, because if the dragon boats, for example, are costing $30,000 to $40,000, where's the money coming to help pay for that? Because there's an income expectation and an expense expectation. What's the spending plan? And that if the city was on the hook for $30,000 to $40,000 for renting dragon boats, but no income expected, I think council members might have a few questions about that. In terms of the $5,000, that was seed money that the group went out and raised. That group went out and raised funds. It's like, again, it's too bad Mee's not here, because Me probably knows it off the top of her head. I wasn't part of that. I know one of Michelle's staff members was a member of the committee, just to kind of make sure that, hey, can you make sure that, here's an invoice, will you make sure it gets cut, and a check gets cut.
They spend a lot of time getting community contributions to the event. I mean, really, that's how they raised money, is finding people or businesses in the community that would put money toward the event. And I really think that's where most of that money came from, was contributions, is what I recall. And granted, it's been a few years now since this all kind of stopped with the pandemic, but.
So to clarify, my understanding is that I was putting to vote just the seed money, the unity and community money, and whatever in-kind contribution as far as the insurance. Everything else we have planned to raise through sponsorships and grants, and we've already met about a quarter of our goal of that budget. And so what I'm requesting is just the transference of the unity and community money, the 5,000, and the city's support in granting like the insurance and assistance with Kathy Snell, our events coordinator, and getting some of our permits and whatnot. But we have a fiscal sponsor through Colorbold right now, and so they're going to be handling all of the transactions and whatnot. So
Colorbold would be the fiscal agent?
mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what is it,
Colorbold
Bold,
Association.
Colorbold.
Mm-hmm. They're an organization, a nonprofit focused on empowering diverse businesses and entrepreneurship in our local economy.
If we were turning public funds over to a private entity, there would need to be some type of agreement with expectations and things like that. It sounds like you're shaking your head. You're familiar with that.
Yeah, it's just kind of stuck on that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we don't need to, I mean, if we vote to not take this Unity and Community Fund, I think that's okay too, but it's just a means of saying like, hey, the city of Oshkosh is behind this event. We're united on that front. The DEI, I would imagine that most of our funds would be in kind through, time, service, and service equity.
So you can have the insurance through the city. The city
Yeah,
can
it's a
sponsor it
sponsor.
through their in-kind donation of the leach and insurance, but not use the funds that were left over from Unity and Community, because that's still value in an in-kind contribution.
Mhm.
So is it, because I have a lot of questions as a finance major, and then thinking of the legal part of it. And I don't want to bore anyone or put them in my head, but I just have a lot of questions on that. And if there's funds left over, how are those determined? Or if we gave 5,000, will we at least, if there's funds left over, what portion would we receive to go back in this fund to host additional community activities that would really always be focused on Oshkosh? And so I have that question, and also the question when we're giving funds to a private organization, there's some contracts that need to be reviewed and looked at, and it's hard for me to vote yes when I have these many questions, and surely this council is going to have even more than we have. I think it's such a great idea to bring that. I just wonder, is it possible for the city for this first year, and we're only talking about 1 year until we can see how it works out, give the in-kind for the event to be held here in Oshkosh, understanding we want it to be years to come, but can we start with that? Because I think that's great. There's value in renting the leach and insurance and all of that too.
Yeah, and that's where I just think, just for simplification, to move it along, that would be my recommendation, is we
That's-
just split these two issues, because we had talked about other potential ways of using that money to support possible vendors or other ways and offsetting costs for, folks to be more of a part of the event. So I would suggest maybe we just split those two.
Votes.
Vote on this strictly in the city sponsorship, and then we can continue to think about the
Sure.
community,
Using the
community
funds.
money.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
Absolutely. And if we want to create a budget where that $5,000, let's say, is replenished, we can
Yeah, too.
discuss
But I think
that.
just
And
for tonight,
Mhm.
maybe if we
Sure.
just move it along, it would be helpful, I think, to get a city sponsorship locked in and try to move that ahead.
Right. Let's do it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that. I
So,
would-
go ahead.
Mark, is that a number you can provide in the future? Like how much of those funds are there?
Well,
You-
I mean, it's plus or minus.
Right.
Okay.
Honestly, I think Diane sent me an update some months back, and it was, I thought, about $4,800. And Diane did text me that it was all sponsorships and contributions.
So just says, yeah, as you plan what that money's for, it's good to know how much is there.
Okay, so to clarify, we are voting on the city sponsorship, not voting on the money, the seed money, but for tonight, just voting on the city sponsoring this event.
That is
clear?
the motion that I would make. I
Okay.
would move-
The motion,
Recommend-
oh, sure. I was just
Go
going to repeat
ahead.
it.
No, I don't know why, but go ahead. You-
So your motion is to have the city sponsor the Dragon Boat Race event scheduled in September of 2023? I have to
Second
write
the
the minutes
motion.
later, so.
Okay.
Now I have to make the motion.
All right, so we have a second from Mouche, thank you.
That's right.
And so can we take roll? Aye.
Sabula,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Dahl. Aye. Hesse,
Aye.
Hischler,
Aye.
Benaye,
Aye. Okay, vote carries. All right, thank you. Next, we have our DEI plan, which was approved by council. And now we're on to the part of creating some action items for the plan. So I believe that is attached in our packets.
One down.
All right, so we have about 15 minutes for discussion on this. So, Michelle, to clarify, we're creating action items under health, housing, and economic mobility? Or, I mean, under all the goals?
Right, well, I figured, obviously, last month while I was gone, you guys did approve the plan, and then council approved it thereafter. So when I had talked to Angie about putting this on, I know some of the feedback we received was, okay, great, now let's, they're kind of looking for some meat, so what do our action items look like? So that was kind of where I thought, now would be the right time to start filling in what specifically does this look like. So I don't think we have to make decisions necessarily, but at least, what action items, and I didn't have a specific section of the action plan, but I don't know if we want to start with community outreach, identify barriers, community engagement, whichever areas you guys were thinking.
I just want to say, it's really great to hear that council's looking for some more substance, which is good, because I think we had a lot that we've already considered and talked about. So I'm just wondering if now, maybe, because in each one of these, I read them, outreach, barriers, community engagement, and resourcing and resources. Those are almost, if I let my mind go, just separate work streams or work groups, and we may have different interests or not. Could we maybe just decide, because we run into this forum and this walking forum business. So is there a way we can structure these where we have maybe at least 2 people that could kind of help move some of these areas along? If we could volunteer to do that, because otherwise we're going to spin around this for a long time, I think. Well, I'm not going to call them anything. I'm going to say just
Discussions of 1 or 2
interesting
members?
people interested in community outreach. Can we figure that maybe and just get a show of hands, just so we start to know who might have an interest in one of these areas and parse it out from there? That would be a suggestion, because otherwise we can go on for a long time.
So what I'm hearing from Ashley is maybe 1 or 2 people for each of these to vet out some ideas to bring back to the committee.
Yeah, and yes, thank you. So, because we have, yes.
And I wouldn't worry about the whole media
I
thing.
know, Mark, you said that in the past, I'm
I-
sorry.
I'll give you an example. We've got two council members that have formed the committee to look at our committee structure. And they have meetings, and all we do is post it on the wall, and nobody else shows up. I mean, and we just give you a
understand.
place. You can notice it to meet at New Moon. It's not like you have to have any formal, doesn't have to be a certain place, like it has to be here at City Hall or anything like that.
well-
But no, I think the idea is, makes a lot of sense. I just
along.
don't want you to get intimidated by, oh, we've got to follow these rules. Those rules exist, but they also are not meant to limit you. They're just meant to just say, if somebody walks in the room, hi, have a seat, no, welcome. That's
Oh,
all.
I hear you.
And it seldom happens. I mean, we have a handful of people. This is the biggest group you've had for your meeting, probably since you started. It's a couple people extra in the room. It's not an issue. Welcome.
Okay, well, either way,
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, you're chairwoman, I don't know if maybe that's a way to just get us moving, perhaps?
Yeah, I like that idea of parceling it out. So we have the areas of community outreach, identifying community barriers, community engagement, and resources. So what I'll do is I'll call out community outreach, and if you'd like to maybe, if that's an area that you want to help develop some of these action items, maybe just a raise of hands and just.
Excuse me, sorry, right there, just
Yeah.
a second. I guess I was just kind of curious, like looking at some of these. It was something I brought up when we were talking, or when we were trying to finalize this plan months ago. About like, you know, again, like, I guess when I see these things here about, you know, we know there are gaps, we know there are issues, we know there are things, you know. I guess I kind of think about it too, kind of piggybacking off of the Winnebago health person. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Heidi.
But about like, you know, needs inventories, things like that, like to actually like guide like the, you know, to guide where our you know, where we're going to be spending our time, what we're going to be focusing on, what kind of intervention would make the most sense depending on, you know, what issues are most, you know, prevalent and you know, relevant, I suppose, here in you know, here in Oshkosh. And I guess I don't know if that would just be like an individual action item for each of these little groups, is developing how you want to determine what those gaps are, or what kind of assessment tools, or what kind of things we want to use to, again, more properly identify where those gaps and where we might be lacking are, things along those lines. I mean, because even that's a, you know, that's a big piece in itself. So you're not just, you know, obviously just, you know, picking something arbitrarily to go, you know, attack or whatever you want to
I
look at.
think, Alex, you just volunteered that identified community barrier work group.
So it works for me.
No, I mean,
because I feel like that could go for, we would have to do that for the housing part. We'd have to, because we'd look at all the gaps and where the needs are for housing, where all the gaps are, where what the needs are for health, for economic mobility. I mean, like, I feel like like our actions need to be, I mean, or not need to be, but should be more, you know, focused on data and focused on again, like, what are actually most relevant to the community here in Oshkosh. Again, I might have been a little bit more wordy than I needed to be, excuse me, but yeah, I guess I was just kind of curious how, like, things like that or how we might fit that in. Again, if it would be, again, if we would break that down, you know, needs inventory for community outreach, needs inventory for housing, health, things like that. I guess I'm just kind of curious how we're going to go about identifying some of these action items, again, that are but based on data, based on community information, things along those lines. I know, maybe that's, again,
Well, you
broad.
I would say there's probably slightly different inputs for each of these. And it's gonna look a little different for all of them to some extent, and it's gonna grow and evolve. But yes, we did need to pull together data. We have some resources, the Polko things, we have things to draw from. Good, bad, or otherwise, it's just, we have a starting place. They're all legit. Maybe that's something else. Is there also, if we can't do, and just like vote by raising hands, because maybe you need more time to process, which is great. What if we just chart it out and drop it and find a way to volunteer ourselves at some point, and then also create our list of questions, because we all have questions. So I think as we go, we can probably field that out.
Yeah.
Those are all good points, but I don't have answers.
Absolutely.
I didn't expect it. I didn't expect anybody to.
Well, I know.
Yes.
Just using you a bit, but.
Oh, yeah. No, it was just, it's something I think about, again, just, I mean, I guess just from my experience, I guess, working in the schools and, you know, doing the, you know, the various, like PBIS things or whatever, again, going through your needs, you know, but again, you're breaking it down by individual schools, things along those lines, again, just making sure it's relevant, again, to this community and, you know, based on data and based on need not just arbitrarily chosen.
Yes, I think the data is out there. We have a good collection of data, but the questions you bring up have been questions we've been asking from our very first meeting around, like, where is this data coming from? From there, like, who's deciding what metrics or what goals we're putting in? And, just keeping in mind as well, and this is also a point, that we've had for many, or a couple years now, is as an advisory board, what our action items are only within our, what's within our ordinance and not so much on this internal, within the city. It's more community and external focused. So just to clarify that, because we've been kind of going back and forth on that, and I think some of the initial plan that we drafted had some action items that were more internal, and so I don't know, I think we're trying to make it more distinct that what's within our committee's locus of control.
Sure. And I guess, I kind of ask this too, not really knowing what kind of data we have access to be honest. So I guess that was kind of also my point. Yeah.
I want to jump through the window that Ashley cracked and our president just emphasized. We get stuck in our role clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So to be clear, we're all getting together, whichever bucket you pick, to make recommendations that the city should consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
The committee's not out here building ramps at parks if we see like the park's not accessible. Just to be clear, we're making recommendations in all of these. So that's where we get stuck sometimes.
And to your point, like, here's an example for identifying community barriers. Take housing. We just had a housing study that was done. I see that as one tool of data that you can use and go in there and be like, okay, what in this plan is something we should recommend that we tackle first? So that's just one way of unraveling that specific issue. But like Ashley said, it's going to look different for each of your points. But that's one example I can think of for housing or health. We just had they're in the process of doing that, but I'm sure you can gather data from that and make those recommendations to council.
Okay, so what we'll do is send out maybe a spreadsheet and think on this, see what areas kind of light up for you, and
Would you like us to, as staff, to just kind of make a survey out of this to?
yes,
That'd be great.
please, yes, thank you.
Would that help you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yes,
Would you
thank
like us, because of the community barriers section?
Break them
would you
down
like
to
that?
subsets.
Yeah,
I
subsets,
think.
so you get all three?
Yes.
Because I think, Aaron raised a good point. And
Thank you.
after our presentation by Heidi, I remembered her name.
I apologize, I'm terrible with
After
names.
the presentation by Heidi, health might be our resource for a lot of the health stuff type of thing. So, but that's not the purpose of the survey. The purpose of the survey is, here are these different areas, and so we can do, community outreach, barriers, housing, barriers, health, barriers, economic mobility. We'll put something together.
I'll put it together.
That way then you don't have to sit and wordsmith a survey here, and
That's right.
That'd be great.
We'll be here all night, so
Yes, okay,
I'm happy to.
Thanks for jumping in there.
yes, thank you.
You said, what are you here for tonight? There's our moment.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Moving on. Review HR budget expenditures in relation to DEI initiative. So I believe Michelle has something
I did send
attached.
that out Friday.
It's an official memo. Okay. So in your packets, there, the second to last sheet has a memo with the breakdown.
Right, just very simply what the budget allocations have been. I heard Mouche, again, I got to watch the meeting since I was unable to attend in February. And what I heard was we wanted to kind of see what the last few years have looked like, so.
In 2023 is just what's been spent to date.
Right, and I was just giving myself the microphone back that, yes, obviously, we have not spent much yet for 2023. We certainly have initiatives, planned, including we've got some ongoing training that's continuing. Of course, we're looking at additional training for the entire employee group this year. And of course, we have ongoing facilitation plans with people.
People.
And of course,
No
we
name.
will pay for our annual gear membership, et cetera. So this is literally just what we've expended so far.
The Toward One conference was for staff.
It is. There are 5 staff members scheduled to go to that.
I understand that the leftover funds, that if we don't use them, then they can't roll over, right? Would it be possible for you to tell us when it's almost close to the deadline, to the end, like, hey guys, I still have 10 grand remaining here. Do you have any DEI related activities you'd like to spend this money on? Because looks like when I was going through here, there's some money that we didn't use. I think maybe 2022, maybe 6 grand. Yeah. So instead of just wasting that money, if we were involved, we could figure out where we could spend it on.
Well, certainly we didn't waste the money. It does
No,
go
no, no,
back
no.
to the
No.
general
Waste
budget.
Well, because then to roll over, right?
Yeah.
It won't roll over to next year.
Funds
it
don't,
does
yeah, the
not.
funds lapse.
Okay.
I'm curious, thank you, Michelle, that's a good point. I'm curious what our role is in these funds. I don't know if we're just advisory on whether if something is within the DEI expenditure, is that coming to us, our committee, or?
There are no funds specifically earmarked for the committee itself. They're for initiatives relative to DEI, which includes the committee, but for example, all of our training, it comes out of that same $30,000 budget. So that's why you saw some of the expenditures we had from last year. So if you identified a need, I think Michelle kind of said it, if you see a need for something, one of the things you can do is if, let's say in October you said, hey, I really think this is a great initiative, and we want to hire person A to do this, you can sign a contract with person A and encumber funds. So there's things you can do to do that. I would suggest that you work on your plan and say, we'd like to implement A, B, and C, and if there's any cost relative to implementing initiatives A, B, and C, identify what those are, and then we'll say, okay, how are we doing budget-wise? Let's look at it. Let's say A and B can get funded because we got enough money left in the budget, and we do C next year, we can do that. If there's funds available for all three, do all three. But I would suggest if you can fund all three and there's still extra money, don't do D just because you got money. Do D because you think D is really super important to you.
And Mark, and because that money is already approved, it doesn't have to go to council, right? It's up to you to disperse that, make that determination.
This is a little tricky because none of our committees have budgets, but I guess if it was something relatively minor, yeah, I can certainly, in my administrative authority, can do that.
Okay.
So then the next question is, okay, council approves 30 grand for this year, and we end up spending maybe half of it. So next year, council again is supposed to approve another amount of money, and then Bill Miller will look like, okay, guys, we gave you $30,000 last year. You only used $7,000. Clearly, you don't need the money, you know.
I started my career as a budget analyst, so you're a young budget analyst, Mark, would have said that. But I think nowadays it's a recognition of you have certain goals you want to achieve. Sometimes you get to achieve those goals in a given year, sometimes you don't. It's not exclusive to DEI, so Michelle may come up with the best training course that may cost 25 grand. I'm not suggesting that, but if that happens, it's like, we've got 600 employees. So to do a training session for 600 employees, that costs money. If there's other initiatives that you want to go after, I would say there's a balance of money there. I do not anticipate changing that funding until you reach a point where it's not enough. But for now, I wouldn't worry about that scenario that you described. Like I said, I'm a 28-year-old budget analyst, Mark, would have cut you like nothing. But that's not the right way to go. And I've learned over the years, because then you're just encouraging people to spend money wastefully, and that's not what you guys are about.
And we've made, obviously it will depend on the council at times, but, we've made it city manager goals and priorities. So, I don't personally, but, I can't speak for everyone on council, but foresee that being cut. If anything, I'd like to see it expanded.
And they've asked for us to weave things into everyday life. So if, to the degree we need to do something, we need to do something. If that suggestion comes from DEI, then we have to look at that too. And I think we owe it to this group to take a look at these reasonable types of requests, saying, hey, Mark, I think this is really important type of thing.
A point of clarification on your budget cycle, is it federal or state cycle, end of year or calendar year, October, calendar year? Okay. Thank you.
So that's why we spent so little so far.
Make no assumptions.
Ends next week. April Fools.
Don't know the games, eh?
Could you clarify that for people who don't know, like what is the time frame, like the fiscal start? And
Yeah, the calendar year is our fiscal year. We typically start the budget process with departments in late July, early August. The budget is submitted to council by usually by the first meeting in October for them, and then they spend about the next month going through the approval and review process. We have budget workshops with them in July, August, and September on various, I call them pre-budget submittal things, so that when they get the budget, there's fewer surprises. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that's kind of how we do it. So in terms of if you're dreaming ahead for '24, starting to dream in July is not unreasonable. And I think that's
Having
probably,
your dream somewhat figured out by July is reasonable.
yeah. Dream and then tell us your dream right away.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Next, committee member roundtable. So any DEI-related activities and events in the area. I will share one via email. They're kind of these community conversations happening called Bridging the Political Ideological Divides, supported by Celebrate Diversity Fox City. So I will email that to you. There's a lot of information here. There are going to be some community conversations in the evenings and on Mondays, which will, I guess, conflict with our meetings, but also during the daytime on Friday. So I'll email that out.
Just share something that's in the planning. I'm not asking for any donations or anything at this point by any means, but working with some community partners to bring in film, the Invisible class. So I'm trying to get organizing a film screening, really focused on the root cause of and the issues of homelessness. And this is coming out of Josh Hayes is the director's name, and I got to connect with him a couple of years back at a national conference before the pandemic hit, and so they're kind of relaunching this film. But I'll be working to get that at least in Oshkosh and Winnebago County. We had interest from Esther, and then a board I'm on, Casa Esther's. That's kind of its origination, and then Trinity Episcopal. Chris Corbin's kind of had an interest. So there's a couple of community groups that we're looking to just start to bring this, and I'll kind of keep you updated. And if anybody has an interest in helping with some film screenings in other areas in the valley and trying to do a series of them, I think it's a great opportunity, and we're trying to get this stuff all set and come summer.
So there's an event going on tomorrow on campus, and it's going to be part of the climate justice teach-in, and climate justice is very much so a DEI topic and subject. So it's free for anyone to come in, even people who are outside of the university who don't attend. UWO, you're allowed to come in. It's at Reeve, room 228, and it's all day from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So
Okay, Lakeisha, we have an event coming up. I'm sure Fat Mama talked about it a little bit here. This is sponsored. Yeah, we have some flyers around here. So it's going to happen on. It's sponsored by SEPO Zambia, and it's about Rio Oshkosh, racial equity advocacy and leadership in Oshkosh. We are going to have come and meet other families at Boys and Girls Club. The event's going to be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. If you are interested in coming, please do make a reservation by text. That way, it will help us. It will help Fat Mamas know how much food to prepare. It's just going to be a gathering of families coming together and get to know each other in the community. Come to learn about any upcoming events, So please do come if you have time, but don't forget to send a text for a reservation. Yeah. You can come as well, Alonzo.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Here you go, my friend.
Yeah, I'm around, thank you.
Any other related events?
I want to plant a mustard seed on something I'm experiencing happening in other communities. So businesses are bringing in DEI consultants for staff. And some businesses and communities I go to invite their staff to bring someone from the community. So that's how they're branching out. Like the neighbor doesn't work there, so the neighbor's not getting the training and the skill of civility and discourse. So I just want to plant that seed that in other communities they're allowing staff to bring one member of the community to bring community and business together. So
That's very good.
This is my first day back from vacation, so I just caught wind of Kathy Snell informed me that there's at least one group, and there could be two, I'm not sure, but wanting to put on a Juneteenth event, and I'm not sure if anybody had heard about that, but certainly, there's some folks out there who are wanting to organize that. So I at least wanted to at least make the group available, because that, the next time you meet, it's going to be late April, and it's going to be, weeks away at that point. So just wanted you to be aware of it in case you hear something. We have just now started to hear about it, and we're starting to make inquiries, because it wouldn't be a city-sponsored event, but they want to use the group's inquiring about using like the Leech or something like that, or one of the parks, and it's like, that's cool. It's different because it's not free like it is, like we were just talking about for Dragon Boat, but it's certainly an interesting development that there's a group that's interested in celebrating or recognizing Juneteenth.
All right, almost done here. Outstanding items, update on Chief Oshkosh statue.
I know that John read you the update last month. I really don't have a further update. Obviously, we are, they're looking to actually put these signs up. If I recall, my very brief conversation with Parks Director was hopefully an unveiling in June. Does that sound right to you, Mark?
There were some blackout dates that
Okay.
the nominee said that would be a good time frame for them, and we're having some issues that the State Historical Society wants us to make sure we're clearing out, to make sure that there's nothing else in the vicinity that might be an area. We know immediately around the statue there's some burial grounds, but they're concerned that there might be some other areas. It actually didn't start with the statue or the plaques. It actually started with, we're redoing the road there, and all of a sudden at the end, we're getting ready to get it out to bid, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, there might be some artifacts there that we need to check out. It's like, we've been working in this area for years doing zoo expansions. First time it's ever been brought to our attention. So we're like, okay, we'll follow your lead. That's the only thing holding us up, because the plaques are done, they look awesome. So we're really happy about that. So actually, it was almost a blessing that the Menominee said there's a few week window here that please don't schedule it during that. We got way too much going on. And we're like, well, we think we're good with that. So now it's a matter of getting an answer from the State Historical Society if they're gonna require us to do anything, or if we've got enough information to share with them that they say, okay, you're good to go. But it started with a street, not the plaques.
I think we've done an update on the community event, but I'll just ask if anybody's interested in supporting the Dragon Boat planning. Please reach out. Anne Marie will be representing our committee as well in the planning. And then reviewing future items on council agenda.
I was going to say, on tomorrow's agenda, there weren't any future things listed, but obviously Aaron may have some things he's aware of. I
There's
don't know.
nothing really.
Okay, yeah, I know
Pretty
nothing.
light. We're still waiting to hear back the results of our subcommittee on committees, basically, to see how that's gonna, what changes are gonna be recommended. That's probably the only relevant thing for this committee at the time.
Okay, great. Lastly, future agenda items. You can mention something here or email me or Michelle.
We do plan, I guess, Angie and I, we do plan on recognizing a cultural month every month. So obviously this month we recognized Women's History Month. So we will plan something for next month as well. Obviously, if there are people that you think getting in here to speak, I think it was great having Heidi here today. That's wonderful. I think it helps get the word out. We're always looking for recommendations.
Yeah, before Anne Marie left, she suggested maybe having Sarah Phillips come in and talk about some activities at the museum that go beyond, reaching out to different groups.
I got one last question. I think I forgot to just talk about it when we were doing a round table. I think every May, first week of May, there's always a Hmong festival. Are we going to recognize it or do something about it as a committee?
That's usually around Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Yeah.
Again, I miss me.
Yeah, me is not here.
Yeah, it's Memorial Day and Labor Day, so it's at the end of the month, but it is in May.
It's in May.
And I know Me has offered a table for our group. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's not a bad idea, though, in terms of, they've come and gotten, the Hmong Service Center's consistently gotten their special event permit, but there's never been hey, let's recognize them for their contribution. Yeah. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's something to think about. It's coming soon.
We can do it in early May because they'll still be weeks away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our meetings at the end of May or the end of April.
No, I said I meant.
Oh, okay.
No, in terms of that's right. I was thinking of a council proclamation or something like that. I'm sorry. That's what I was thinking of. I was going way past you guys because the Hmong Service Center's been doing this for years.
Mm-hmm. Something. Okay, if we have no other further agenda items, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Being adjourned.